Catch 'em, gotta catch 'em all. Gotta catch 'em all. Slavery. Whew, love that track. Imagine being thrust into a world where you capture wild creatures against their will, trap them in a ball, and force them to fight one another for sport. Well, no need to imagine. Let me introduce you to the wonderful world of Pokemon. In this fantastical land, all kinds of monsters roam around, and the name of the game is to capture the best and train them up to become the top dog. To do this, you want to get started early. Most Pokemon trainers get their start as a kid. I'd like to say venturing forth from your home to become a Pokemon Master is a safe quest, but in reality, it's anything but. Not only do you have to brave the forests looking out for dangerous Pokemon, but you also have to keep an eye out for a secret gang looking to take over the world. It's not like stopping them will fall to you or anything. And when I say look out for dangerous Pokemon, I mean it. There are some nasty little creatures about. Take Gliscor for example. This unsettling description comes straight from the Pokédex itself. Gliscor glides soundlessly on pitch black wings and sinks sharp fangs into the throat of its prey. It then takes on a look of satisfaction once it's entirely drained its prey of blood. How lovely. So keep your wits about you when in Pokemon territory. You never know what could be lurking in the bushes. Ideally, you want to track down a manageable low-level Pokemon that turns into a beast with some training. And given that Pokemon is now on its 10th generation, you are simply spoilt for choice. There's a Pokemon for everything. Want a Pokemon that looks like a Pokeball? We got a Pokemon for that. Want a Pokemon that looks like a tree? We got a Pokemon for that. Want a Pokemon that looks like a literal pile of garbage? We got a Pokemon for that. A good rule to go by is that if the Pokemon looks cool, it's probably worth getting. And remember, if you catch it and it turns out to be a liability, you can just leave it trapped in its Pokeball forever. No biggie. Of course, looks can be deceiving, and a cool buff design doesn't always signify strength. Ever heard of Celebi? Well, this pixie-looking ass bug is actually one of the strongest Pokemon in the game. It can thank its status as a legendary for that. If you captured a Celebi, you could probably sell it for a fortune. I bet you could pocket a ton of money for its wings alone. What am I saying? You caught me sounding like a member of Team Rocket. On the other side of things, there are plenty of cases of Pokemon who look badass as hell who are total pushovers. See this mammoth rockworm? It basically disintegrates at the sight of water. How disappointing. Besides power, you also need to think about typings, as certain types of moves are weak, neutral, or super effective on specific types. Here we've got Octillery. My man is a goddamn octopus. As such, it should come as no surprise that he's a water type. No, he's not a fire type, Kevin. Such a dumbass. Octopus live in the sea, so it makes sense for Octillery to be a water type. Let's look at another example. This is Absol. It has a scythe attached to his forehead, and by spinning it around, it can cut the head of a Pokemon clean off. Okay, I made that last bit up. Just keeping you on your toes. Absol is actually a harbinger of disaster. Whenever it appears, a freak event soon follows. Therefore, its dark typing makes sense. Hang on a minute. Foreseeing future events? Doesn't that sound like a psychic type too? Is this a visual bug? No matter. Let's move on. Next up, we have a literal dragon. It doesn't take a genius to work out which type this Pokemon is going to be. Yeah, you're right. It's fire and flying.
Hey, are we sure about these typings?
As you can see, typings aren't always straightforward. So it's best you bust open your Pokédex because guessing the typing of a Pokemon is about as reliable as my dad coming back after going out for a pack of smokes. Personally, I like going for at least one electric and dragon type as they tend to be pretty strong. You've only got 6 slots for Pokeballs to carry around with you, so make sure you use them wisely. But really it's like you've only got 5 Pokemon choices, seeing as all of you will be picking Charizard. Goddamn sheep. Once you've beaten up some Pokemon and enslaved them to your will, it's time to get training. To begin with, you want to battle other wild Pokemon, but once you've leveled up enough, you can start taking on other trainers. The higher the level of the Pokemon you take down, the more experience your Pokemon earns. The trouble is, with time, your Pokemon will dwarf those found in the wild, and even that of other trainers. This makes leveling up very difficult, as it takes a really long time. I'm talking hundreds of wild Pokemon to gain a single level. Besides the grind, you might also start to feel guilty, as you single-handedly cull waves of innocent Pokemon who are just going about their daily lives. But don't feel guilty. It turns out Pokemon are immortal. No matter how bad you beat them, they never actually perish, just faint. So feel free to obliterate level 1 Rattatas to your heart's content. Sure, leveling up is slow, but morally you're basically in the clear. They'll recover. Eventually. With sufficient training, you'll soon become strong enough to take on the top trainers in each region. These are known as gym leaders. Little known fact, these are actually racists. as they only have Pokemon of one type and shun the rest. Goddamn bigots. It's your sacred duty to take these xenophobes down and steal their racist badges. You can then wear these as a sign of prowess, indicating your triumphs in the name of equality. Once you've vanquished each of these heinous gym leaders and acquired their badges, you're finally ready to take on the very best the Pokemon world has to offer, the Elite Four. Now, I don't recommend challenging them right away. They're no slouches, and you'll need to do some more leveling up before you can put up a fight. Of course, leveling up your Pokemon to reach the heights of the Elite Four is incredibly difficult, so I'd look for a way to speed up the process. Famous trainer Ash Ketchum attached his Pikachu to a generator and zapped the hell out of it to increase its output. Sound strategy, but that kid wasn't all there as he was training up his Pikachu to take on an Onix. Ever heard of Water type, you plonker? The thing is, this accelerated training only works on electric types, so it's pretty limited. Try and think outside of the box to come up with your own ways of speeding up the leveling process. Me? I'm partial to force-feeding my Pokemon rare candies when nobody's looking. Hey, you might even get lucky and forget about a Pokemon you dropped off a year ago at the daycare. Sure, it'll be pissed at the sight of you, but once you've broken its will and forced it to submit, you've got a super strong Pokemon on your hands. Oh, Lapras! You've got so big and strong! You're going straight in my team. Let's see what you've got. In reality, being a Pokemon master isn't for everyone. It's a tough gig, and if you don't want to put in the work, and don't inadvertently stumble into Mewtwo, you won't make it big. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Pokemon are simply fun to have, and way more useful than these losers. Ever wanted to have poisonous gas at your fingertips? Well, now your dreams can be a reality with coughing. How about a buff bodyguard who has amazing inventory space? Say no more. Machamp is your man. Cancel that. Just get an army of Machamps. You'll never need to carry anything ever again. And then there's this little guy, Ditto. Some of you may have heard of it. It has the ability to transform into anything. You know what that means. Yeah, so can I claim this back as an expense on my tax return? Basically, whatever you want to do in this world, Pokemon can help you to achieve it. And unlike in the real world, where your strange habits lead to you being branded as a loser or a freak, in the world of Pokemon, you don't have to worry about your behaviour or human companionship. Your Pokemon captures are bound to you, forever forced to serve your needs. It's almost too good to be true.